Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay, everybody in the back can hear me? Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Mike McLean. I'm the Town Moderator, and if you'll indulge me for a few moments, I'm going to read a poem, if I can get through it, and then an invocation before I start with the instructions. And so here we go. This is The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Okay, this is a town meeting invocation. Let's bow our heads for a moment of silence and reflection. We're gathered together in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to come together and to try to make decisions about what is right, about what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, I am right, and saying, I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. So with that, I'm going to read the instructions to the body. Robert's Rules of Order are the basic rules of order for this meeting, except where Vermont law takes precedence. You cannot change Vermont state law, but you can change Robert's rules with a 2/3 vote if you so desire. I've asked Maureen Bell to be my parliamentarian for this meeting. An article must be moved and seconded by the body, then restated by the moderator before it's under consideration, and debate on the article may begin. Articles may have only one amendment at a time associated with them, and amendments to an article, likewise, may have only one amendment at a time associated with them. After you've spoken once on a particular article, you will not be recognized a second time during discussion on that article or amendment until all other voters who wish to speak on the issue for the first time are given an opportunity to do so. Division of the House can be requested by one voter before or after a voice vote. Vermont state law provides for a paper ballot vote on the request of 7 voters unless the town has made other arrangements, again before or after a voice vote or after a division of the House. This means that the moderator could ask for a voice vote and declare the motion passed. Someone could immediately request division of the House. The moderator then must require a vote by show of hands or rising, and the moderator would declare the motion passed. Someone could immediately request a paper ballot, and the moderator would then have to honor this request if the number of people asking for the paper ballot meets minimum requirements. Debate may be cut off by a motion to call the question and a 2/3 vote to do so. All motions, remarks, and discussion must be addressed to the moderator. I'll do my best to recognize you in the order that you've raised your hands. You must be recognized to speak, even to call the question. After being recognized, please stand up, wait for a microphone, then give your name and speak in a loud voice so that your comments may be heard by everyone. Your speeches must be confined to the merits of the question. You will not be allowed to engage in personal attacks. Vermont state law prohibits consideration of articles that have not been warned. This means you cannot take binding action under the article Other Business, and you can't amend warned articles such that they would deal with business that hasn't been warned. Reconsideration of an article is allowed by Vermont state law until a point is reached where another article is under consideration. That means if you voted down an article, a motion can be made to reopen consideration of this article by a person on the prevailing side. And I'll have to ask if you were on the prevailing side. However, once the next article is on the floor, no more action can be taken regarding the previous article at this meeting. My role as moderator is to help you accomplish the business you intend to do. Please raise your hand and ask questions if you don't understand what's happening, or if you think what is happening is wrong for some reason, or if you want to do something but don't know how to proceed. Please tell me if you feel I'm ruling improperly. You have the right to challenge the moderator's rulings. Only registered voters of the town may vote at annual or special meetings of the town. At this time, I ask those who are not registered voters in the town of Windham to raise your hands. All right, thank you for coming. You may not vote, and unless there's a suspension of the rules, you may not speak on articles. Okay, with that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I call the meeting to order. It's 10:14 by my clock. I'd like to introduce the Select Board, who's here on the front here with us. So Cord Scott, Chair, Michael Pelton, and George Dutton. Sorry, I had a lapse there. And then Antia Rupert is the clerk of the Select Board, and she'll be taking notes for this meeting. So thank you, Antia. Okay, start with Article 1. So this is on page 5 of the annual reports. If you guys don't have an annual report, there are extras in the back. And I would also like to point out, if you haven't, there's an amendment to the, or a correction, I said, or a page that was misprinted, page 54, and there are 8.5 by 11 copies of that in the back if you don't have that. Okay, so Article 1. Shall the voters accept the town report prepared by the auditors? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn. All right, Carolyn Partridge moved the article. I need a second. Kathy Scott seconded the article. Article 1. Shall the voters accept the town report prepared by the auditors? Any discussion?
I'd like to thank the auditors for all the hard work they've done.
Okay. All right. So noted. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll vote on Article 1. Shall the voters accept the town report prepared by the auditors? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 1 passes. Article 2. Shall the voters authorize the town treasurer to collect current taxes? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn. Okay, motion's been moved by Carolyn. Looking for a second. Kathy Scott. Okay, Article 2, shall the voters authorize the town treasurer to collect current taxes? Any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 2 to a vote. Article 2, shall the voters authorize the town treasurer to collect current taxes? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 2 passes as written. Article 3. Shall the voters set the due date for property taxes as postmarked on or before October 31st, 2026, with interest charges starting on November 7th, 2026? Kathy. So you're moving the article to the floor? Okay. And seconded by Carolyn Partridge. Any discussion on Article 3? Yes, Maureen.
I have a question for the treasurer. Kathy, you had mentioned in the select board meeting recently that you're thinking about moving to a fiscal year. That wouldn't be for this year, would it? Because that would affect the collection date.
We'll have meetings about that this summer to see how people feel about it. I was just planting a seed to think about it. That better? Yeah, I was just planting a seed to think about it, and we would have public meetings about it this summer. Thanks.
Okay. Did everybody hear the question and the answer? Okay. Any other discussion on Article 3? Seeing no other discussion on Article 3, bring it to a vote. Shall the voters set the due date for property taxes as postmarked on or before October 31st, 2026, with interest charges starting on November 7th, 2026? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 3 passes as written. Article 4. Shall the voters authorize $457,374 for the general fund, of which $367,374 shall be raised by taxes and $90,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues? Voted 2025, $326,823 raised from taxes and $96,000 from revenue. Michael.
Can you hear me?
Are you bringing the motion to the floor?
I'd like to amend the article.
Okay, we got to bring the motion to the floor first.
Sure.
So you want to make that motion?
I will.
Okay, motion's been made to bring the article to the floor. Need a second? Second from Carolyn. Okay, yes, discussion.
I would like to amend the article to read, shall the voters authorize $477,299 for the general fund, of which $367,374 shall be raised by taxes and $110,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues.
Excuse me, what was the first number? Raise it to what, Michael?
477,299. And that's due to some errors and omissions that were caught after we approved the budget.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the article. And so the way the process works is we have to vote on the amendment before we vote on if you guys approve the amendment, then we have to go back and vote on the article itself. So first thing we need to do is somebody has to, Michael's made a motion to amend the article. We need a second on that amendment, and then we need to vote on that amendment after we have discussion. Kathy? Second. Okay, so there's a second on the amendment. Discussion on the amendment of the article. And the amendment is to read, shall the voters authorize $477,299 for the general fund, of which $367,374 shall be raised by taxes and $110,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues. Discussion. Michael, any discussion?
Just to say that there were some errors and omissions that were found when the auditors went back through and when we were able to look at some of the revenues and the money moving forward. As you know, we prepare the budget well in advance of the close of the year, so I think it would be wise for us to make these adjustments now.
Okay. Pete?
I just had a clarification issue. What is the difference between money just raised from taxes and monies raised from revenue? What is the source of the revenue?
So clearly the taxes come directly after we to make up for the difference of the monies that we don't have coming in. So the revenues could be a number of different things. It could be fees and permits coming in the front door. It could be copies, it could be grant monies coming in, and so forth.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment to the article? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we're going to vote on the amendment. So this is voting on the amendment, not voting on the article. We're voting to amend the article. Everybody understand that? Okay. So all those in favor of amending the article to read, shall the voters authorize $477,299 for the general fund, of which $367,374 shall be raised by taxes and $110,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues. All those in favor of amending the article, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Okay, the motion to amend the article passes. Now we're back in general discussion of the article as amended. Okay, any discussion on the article as amended? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll bring the amended article up to a vote. Article 4, as amended, shall the voters authorize $477,299 for the general fund, of which $367,374 shall be raised by taxes, and $110,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 4 passes as amended. Okay, Article 5. Shall the voters authorize roads budget expenditures of $570,901, of which $470,901 should be raised by taxes, and $90,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues, and of which $10,000 should be applied from the bond logging fund. Voted in 2025, $494,821 raised by taxes, and $90,000 from revenues. Looking for a motion to bring it to the floor. Kathy Scott moved it, okay, and then seconded by Becky. Okay, Article 5, any discussion? Michael.
I would like to amend this article as well. I would like to amend the article to read, shall the voters authorize roads budget expenditures of $580,900 and shall be raised by taxes, and $100,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues, and of which $10,000 shall be applied from bond logging.
Okay, there's a motion for an amendment to Article 5. That motion needs to be amended, needs to be seconded, sorry. Okay, Kathy is seconded. All right, so now we're going to vote on the amendment to the article. Everybody understands that since we just did that, so. Yeah. Any discussion on the amendment? Michael, you want to?
Sure. The reason I would like to amend it is that, like I said, we approve our budget well in advance. As things progress, it looks like we need approximately $10,000 more for salt. And as we know, salt has been sort of a challenge this year for a lot of towns. Fortunately, we've been lucky, but we're hedging our bets.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? Carolyn?
I completely support this. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our amazing road crew for the job that they do. I support this amendment, and I want to thank the road crew for their excellent job. Kurt and Richard do an amazing, amazing amount of work, and we really appreciate it. So thanks to them.
Richard, do you want to stand up and say anything? Okay. He's hiding in the back in case anybody didn't see. Okay, so any other discussion on the amendment?
Just a clarification question, Blake.
Okay.
Can you say again where the 10,000 came from?
So the additional $10,000 will be coming from budget revenues. So it will not increase taxes.
Thank you. And the 100,000 came from budget revenues too?
On the previous article?
No, the amendment. So you said 580,900 by taxes, and
Yep.
100,000 from revenue, and then another 10,000.
From bond logging. Yeah.
Bond logging?
Yep, it's just like the original article. The only change would be the increase in the budget revenue amount and the budget expenditure.
Any other discussion on the amendment before we vote on the amendment? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll vote on the amendment to the article. This is not the article itself. We're just voting on amending the article. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment passes. Now we're back in discussing the article itself as amended. Any discussion on the amended article? Al?
I'd just like to thank Michael for diligence in checking the records and getting it right.
I can't take the credit, but thank you. The treasurer, the auditors, definitely put in a lot of work, and we appreciate that.
Okay, any other discussion on the amended article? All right, seeing no other discussion, we will vote on Article 5 as amended. Shall the voters authorize roads budget expenditures of $580,900, of which $470,901 shall be raised by taxes and $100,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2026 budget revenues, and of which $10,000 should be applied from the bond logging fund? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Was that a nay? I couldn't tell. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 5 passes as amended. Article 6. Shall the voters appropriate $173,000 for the new road machinery fund, of which $73,000 should be raised by taxes and $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Voted in 2025, $65,000 raised by taxes, $100,000 from surplus. For a motion to bring it to the floor. Pat. So moved. Okay, motion's brought to the floor. Need a second. Okay, second. That was Abby. Okay, Article 6 is brought to the floor. Any discussion on Article 6? Yes, Pete. Question is, what is the new road machinery?
What do they work? What do you need?
So as you may or may not be aware, we have essentially created a schedule for replacement. We have a new truck that we set money aside for last year, and effectively what we're doing with this article is creating what I like to call a savings account. We're setting money aside, so this year we're looking at replacing the small truck that we have. We also, in the future, will have other more expensive items like the grader and the payloader and things like that. So we're trying to build a little bit of money in the bank so that we can make these purchases without having to take out a giant loan at the end.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 6? Okay, seeing no discussion on Article 6, we'll bring it to a vote. Shall the voters appropriate $173,000 for the new road machinery fund, of which $73,000 shall be raised by taxes and $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 6 passes as written. Article 7. Shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for repaving, of which $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? Voted in 2025, $50,000 for repaving raised by taxes. Need a motion to bring it to the floor. Kathy Scott, need a second. Carolyn Partridge, this is a participatory democracy. All people can participate. The article has been brought to the floor. Any discussion on Article 7? Tan.
I was just going to ask, why do we have such a big surplus? I was just asking, why do we have such?
Yep, it was on.
It's okay. Why do we have such a big surplus?
Okay.
Sure. So we have, as you may or may not have noted in the beginning when we were talking in the news and notes, and I think in the Selectboard report in here, we took on the Talc mine property. That gave us a significant amount of money. We also have monies that came in from the conservation land up here when they changed hands up there. So we're fortunate that we had a pretty sizable sum come in this year, just this year. We also, from the previous year, I don't know if you've seen the audit we're slowly working through, but that there was a undesignated fund balance, I believe, somewhere around $800,000, of which some of it has already been used because we did use some undesignated funds last year. So we're lucky. We should feel really, really happy that we are in the situation that we are, that we can use those funds to build what are designated funds effectively, which I think about in terms of like a savings account. We're setting money aside so that we don't have to, in the future, raise those funds with taxes.
George?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that most of the money that came in as extra revenue this year has been set aside for uses, and we get to those down the list, but most of that hasn't been applied to any of these things we voted on so far. That's mainly been extra money that was found by the audit. So some of these things that we got money, like with the Talc mine, that money will be used for something that's going to grow and benefit the town in the future, as well as some of it set aside for maintenance and improvements at the Talc mine itself. So it's really the audit needed to be done, and we found all this money, and now we're going to use it over time to help the taxpayers.
Okay, discussion. Al?
Yeah, Mike, would you explain to us, please, how do we get revenue? Yes, thank you. How do we get revenue from the talc mine?
How do we get revenue?
We're not purchasing it.
We don't currently receive revenue from the talc mine. We did get revenue when we were gifted the talc mine. That was part of the agreement. They gave us a sizable sum of money so that we could use it however we saw fit. Part of that money we're setting aside for future maintenance at the site, but as part of it, as you may see down below, we're setting money aside for emergency reserve. We're also looking at an investment fund, but that was part of the negotiation process when we took on the property, because we know that in the future, for instance, it's going to need some maintenance. We know that there's going to be some remediation that'll have to be done there. We also know that there's going to be some culvert work that will be needed to be done, and probably hopefully sometime between 10 and 20 years.
George?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much everybody knows about the talc mine, but the company that previously owned or held the land was under the gun to get rid of it, you could say. And they did not know the environmental status exactly of the property. Since we've taken ownership of that property, we've had environmental studies done, and we're currently learning about what needs to be done in order to remediate it. But as a condition of taking that property, we as the select board felt that it was necessary to see some cash along with it to take care of any potential environmental hazards that could exist, as well as potentially care for the dam and the property just in general. So they actually came to us and offered us a lesser amount of money, and we went back to them and argued that they should give us more money with the property in order to take care of it. So it ended up being $350,000, I believe, that came with that property, additional to the property itself. And they covered much. Yeah, they covered much of the first phase environmental study and closing costs, additional to that money as well. So now we've got to finish paying for the second phase, if I'm not mistaken. Kathy would know better. And any potential cleanup that the state or federal government doesn't cover. But the USDA and the Brownfields Fund have been pretty good in the past about covering most of these expenses. So.
We've got the first phase paid for.
Here, John, there's a mic for you. Turn it on, please.
Yeah, we received funding to cover the first phase and the second phase. They covered the phase one and they covered the cost of phase two. We're not done with phase two yet, but we have the money to pay the consultant. So that should be completed this summer.
Hello. I just want to reiterate that Kathy did a lot of work. Kathy Fales did a lot of work on that. So the program that she's talking about that's paying for the remediation and potential work down the road, she found a program called Brella that she got us, filed for, and that got approved for both the Talc mine property and the school. So, remediation that comes up should be paid for by funds from the Brella program. So the $350,000 is literally money that we can decide what to do with. And part of the negotiation, like George was saying, was to prepare for potential problems if there was some kind of a dam failure or so forth. But it doesn't look like there's much risk of that. So that money is going to be set aside for issues at the talc mine, but we don't really expect anything there. And what does come up environmentally should be paid for through the Brella funds.
Okay, we're still on Article 7. Any other discussion on Article 7? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll bring Article 7 to a vote. Shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for repaving, of which $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 7 passes as written. Article 8. Shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the town garage maintenance and improvement fund, of which $10,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus, voted in 2025, $17,500 raised by taxes? For a motion from the floor. Kathy Youngerman moved, second. Pat McLean seconded. Okay, discussion on Article 8. Okay. Okay, no discussion on Article 8. Seeing no discussion, we'll move Article 8 to a vote. Shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the town garage maintenance and improvement fund, of which $10,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 8 passes as written. Article 9. Shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the town office maintenance and improvement fund, of which $10,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus, voted in 2025, $10,000 voted from budget surplus? Looking for a motion from the floor. Jimmy? So moved. Looking for a second. Carolyn? Article 9, discussion. Carolyn. Maureen.
Can we assume that all of these budget surpluses are from the same? Can we assume that all of these budget surpluses being applied are from the same pool, that $350,000? No. Okay.
No, you can't assume that. That $350,000 is only a piece of the pie. Like I said, there's money that came from the conservation when that property changed up there and became federal lands. There was also, like I said, from the previous year, there was $800,000. So effectively, what Kathy and I did was go through basically go through the bank account and basically subtract everything that we knew that was coming in and coming out, and came up with a bottom line number that we felt pretty safe with, and it's pretty conservative. And then that is the magic number that we decided was the quote-unquote surplus, although that is probably not the most appropriate term. It's actually probably should be called undesignated funds, because some of it was not necessarily from this last year, it was from the previous year. Some of it is basically from revenue that came in from the front of the door. But when we came up with that number, my guess is that next year we probably will see, and I could be totally wrong, but I'm going to guess that we probably will end up with somewhere around maybe $200,000, maybe a little bit more. We'll have to sort of see how things work out in the wash. I think what Kathy and I came to a realization of that is that we are coming to the point where we are getting a better understanding of the ins and outs of the budget. And I think by next year, we will have an even better understanding of what's really coming in the door, what's really going out, and we probably will be able to come up with a much, much better number, especially now that we have an audit that's gone through. We can actually compare things where that auditor came to and really come up with a really good finite number next year.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 9? Okay, seeing no other discussion on Article 9, we'll bring it to a vote. Article 9, shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the Town Office Maintenance and Improvement Fund, of which $10,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 9 passes as written. Article 10. Shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the Meeting House Maintenance and Improvement Fund, of which $10,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Voted in 2025, $10,000 voted from budget surplus. Looking for a motion from the floor. Who said that? Cindy moved the motion, and Carolyn seconded. Okay, Article 10, any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll move Article 10 to the vote. Article 10, shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for the Meeting House Maintenance and Improvement Fund, of which $10,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 10 passes as written. Article 11, shall the voters appropriate $3,000 for the Town-wide Reappraisal of Properties, of which $3,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Voted in 2025, $3,000. Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn, sorry, Becky, Carolyn beat you to it. Carolyn moved. Second from you, Becky, okay. Article 11, any discussion on Article 11? Okay, seeing no discussion on Article 11, we'll move that to a vote. Article 11, shall the voters appropriate $3,000 for the Town-wide Reappraisal of Properties, of which $3,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 11 passes as written. Article 12, shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for the Emergency Reserve Fund, of which $100,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Beat me to the punch. Okay, article's been moved. Looking for a second. Abby seconded. Okay, Article 12, any discussion?
The funds, excuse me, the funds from the emergency.
You have to turn the microphone on.
Yeah. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. The funds for the emergency reserve fund, is that being put into a bank account, or how are we maintaining and managing that fund?
Select board.
So, am I on? Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple ways we could go. We could actually create a specific account. However, we operate out of a singular account now. We do have designated funds, so we manage the money independently. However, it's all in one account. That being said, we could look at trying to find some sort of investment account that's separate, but we still have to make sure that we have access to it.
That's what we're doing, Article 22. Right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. Yeah.
There's a subsequent article out, we'll talk about setting up an investment fund.
Yeah, that's separate.
For some of that surplus money that we got last year.
So, Pete,
I was just, an emergency reserve, so is that for fiscal emergencies, or is it for physical, like a flood, or is that, what amounts to an emergency that this would be spent on? Just curious.
So as you may have seen in the news recently, we could use it for a variety, that's the short answer. We could use it for a variety of issues that came up if we didn't set money aside for something that came up, or if we ran into, let's say, a major road issue. As you have seen probably in the news, there are several towns up north that ran into some difficulty when money they had counted on coming from FEMA didn't come through. So they found themselves in a fiscal bind, and I suspect that they'll be taking out loans and increasing taxes to fund that endeavor retroactively. But our goal is to set up the emergency reserve so that we are effectively good to run the town for 2 or 3 months without any influx of funds if something came up. And that sort of ballpark figure will give us room to move if we have to, I don't know, replace a major culvert or something like that. The $100,000 is sort of a start. The goal is to build that to something like $200,000 or $300,000 at minimum, but slowly over time.
There was some money there before.
Yeah, it is supported by and recommended by the VLTC, yes.
okay, any other discussion on Article 12? Okay, seeing no other discussion, bring Article 12 to a vote. Article 12, should the voters appropriate $100,000 for the Emergency Reserve Fund, of which $100,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 12 passes as written. Article 13. Shall the voters appropriate $10,000 for local nonprofit organizations as recommended by the Windham Social Services Committee, of which $10,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Voted in 2025, $9,733 voted from budget surplus. Looking for a motion from the floor. Al? So moved. Okay. Second, Kathy. Okay, Beth seconded. Okay. Discussion on Article 13. Okay, Kathy would like to make an amendment. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. Neighborhood Pantry, Towns and Community Food Shelf, Southern Vermont Community Action, and Vermont Food Bank, and the Windham County Humane Society. Given all that's going on in the world today with food and transportation, I would like to increase each of those items by $300.
Kathy, can you tell me what page you're looking at?
I'm looking at page 65 and 66.
65 and 66. So the amendment is to add $300 to Neighbors Pantry, Towns and Community Food Shelf, and Vermont Food Bank?
And Southern Vermont Community Action.
And Southern Vermont Community Action.
And Windham County Humane.
Windham County Humane.
And did you say the Vermont Food Bank?
Yeah, Matt,
Yes.
is that what you wanted?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 total organizations, an addition of $300
Each.
each. Okay, so that would be an additional $1,500
Yes.
total. Okay, so Kathy's making a motion to amend Article 13 to say, shall the voters appropriate $11,500 for local nonprofit organizations with specific organizations earmarked for an additional $300 from what's in the printed warning on page 65 and 66. Okay, so there's a motion for an amendment. That motion has to be seconded. Carolyn is seconding. Are you seconding that motion? Okay. So now there's discussion on that amendment. Michael?
I'd like to amend the amendment.
Okay.
I would like to,
Okay, go ahead.
to amend the amendment to raise the additional money via taxes.
Okay. All right, so point of clarification. So Michael wants to amend the amendment that we just voted, or it was just seconded, was brought to the floor. So before we vote on that amendment, there's a motion to amend further that additional $1,500 be raised by additional taxes. Okay? So it's kind of like a reverse Russian box. We have to vote on the Michael's motion first. It has to be brought to the floor, and then we'll go back to the amendment, and then we'll go back to the article if you guys choose to amend the article. Are you seconding? Okay, so Michael's amendment, and we can't amend it anymore. We are only allowed one amendment to an amendment. So the motion has been to second amendment to the amendment, and that's been seconded. There's too many seconds in that sentence, sorry. But we have to vote on the amendment to the amendment, okay, before we vote on the article itself. So any discussion on the amendment that Michael brought to raise the additional $1,500 from taxes? Kathy?
Michael, can I ask you what that will do to the tax rate?
It will increase the tax rate by, like tenths of pennies. I don't believe that anybody would notice it in that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Al?
Yeah, could you explain why you're choosing to amend by raising the taxes? Could you explain that, please?
Yeah, it's the simple answer is we can't just assume everything's going to be covered by surplus. We are clearly using a large amount of surplus, and at some point, the surplus runs out. Where that point is exactly, I don't know, but I believe I don't have a problem with the social services like funding. I think that's fine, but I think it's something we have to choose to do, and we can choose to pay for it. I don't know how much it'll be on anybody's taxes, but I can assume it will be, 50 cents or something like that. Without doing the math, I don't know, but it would be minuscule.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Okay. Everybody understand what's going on? Any questions, raise your hand. I'll do my best to explain what I understand. So we're going to vote on the amendment to the amendment. All right. So the amendment is to raise the additional funds that has been proposed by taxes. That's the amendment to the amendment. Okay. That's what we're going to vote on now. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment to the amendment passes. Now we're going to go back to the amendment of the article itself, Kathy's amendment, which is to raise 5 specific organizations' bequests by $300. Those are specifically the Neighbors Pantry. I'm looking at pages 65 and 66 of the report. Neighbors Pantry from $650 to $950. Southern Vermont Community Action from $400 to $700. Towns and Community Food Shelf from $650 to $950, Vermont Food Bank from $750 to $1,050, and Windham County Humane Society from $300 to $600. That's what we're going to vote on now. Okay? Any discussion on that? Cindy?
I remember before how we didn't take and say, you know, the separate and separate, is this on now? Thank you. I just wonder, just point of order or how it works, that you can choose which of these organizations to give more money to and which to give what they requested. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what she's specifically instructing the select board
So
to designate
us
funds.
as townspeople can vote which of these organizations we might give more, even though this is a whole bundle.
That's my understanding, because it's a total for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but the $10,000 on Article 13 is a total of all of the columns for the 2026
Right.
recommended, and which is what the select board has recommended and put into the report. And so the town can now vote and direct the select board. It's my understanding. We've done it in the past.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it's right. It's just what I understand. But that's what
I don't really have a problem with it. I just don't know, you know, it's just sometimes when you have a whole budget,
Mhm.
can you separate it and say line item here? And I guess we've done it with other type of things, but.
Yeah. My understanding is that, yes, we can do that. Yep. Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I know that you amended the amendment and you're not supposed to make any changes to the amendment, but basically, Grace Cottage, the recommended was $1,000.
Mike died. Where's it off?
I'd like to see the Grace Cottage included in a raise this year.
So unfortunately, the article's already been amended, or there's been a motion to amend the article specifically. We can't change that anymore. We can't amend the amendment again. So
Can you have another amendment once this amendment passes?
then we would vote on the article itself, and we can't go back and change. So it's sort of baked in right now based on the initial amendment. So, and we cannot amend that amendment again since we've already amended it. So, sorry. Any other discussion on the amendment to the article? Okay, seeing no discussion, we're going to vote on the amendment to the article. Okay, the amendment, does everybody understand the amendment? Okay, so we're increasing the aggregate by $1,500. So all those in favor of increasing from $10,000 to $11,500, this is the amendment. Well, we'll go back to that because we have to vote on the article. We're just voting on, we're voting on the amendment. So the amendment will say, shall the voters appropriate $11,500 for local nonprofit organizations as earmarked for 5 specific organizations. That's the amendment to the article, okay? Everybody understand what we're voting on? We're not voting on the article itself. You can still vote the article down. All right, so all those in favor of amending the article, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. The amendment to the article passes. Now we have to go back to the article itself as amended and vote on that. Any discussion on the amended article? Okay, seeing no discussion.
Can you just give me the 5?
Sure, yep. So the 5 are, on page 65, there's 3. It's 4th from the bottom, Neighbor's Pantry was the Londonderry Food Shelf. It's going from $650 to $950. Then the last 2 on that page, Southern Vermont Community Action, SEVCA, from $400 to $700. Townsend Community Food Shelf from $650 to $950. And then go to page 66, the top one, Vermont Food Bank, from $750 to $1,050. And then Windham County Humane Society, the 3rd from the bottom, from $300 to $600. Okay? All right. Any other discussion on Article 13 as amended and then amended again? Okay, seeing no other discussion, shall the voters appropriate $11,500 for the local nonprofit organizations as recommended by the Windham Social Services Committee of which $10,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus and $1,500 will be applied from taxes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 13 passes as amended. Okay. Article 14. Shall the voters appropriate $5,000 for the Audit Fund, of which $5,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. Voted in 2025, $10,000 voted from budget surplus. Looking for a motion to, yes. Motion, so moved, okay. And second? Pat? Okay. All right, Article 14, any discussion? Emily, you have the right to speak first if you want, since you made the motion. Okay.
An audit was completed in 2025? No. 24. I was just wondering, when was the last audit completed?
2024. We're looking at trying to get 2025 done as well. We're still in conversation to see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, our auditors do a great job. We learned a lot about professional audit. We're getting quotes on having regular professional audits, so we'll see. Thank you. We're getting quotes on having regular professional audits too, so we need to catch up 25 professionally and then consider going forward with that, as recommended. So.
So on 260, the select board. All right, the select board on 216 had John Mudgett, who was our professional auditor, go through every single page of his draft recommendations. So if you want that is on the town website. It's a video as well as minutes. He explains every page. And certainly it gets caught up in accounting, but you certainly get the gist. And when there's a final, when the treasurer and the select board have responded to his recommendations, you'll also see that on the town website.
Becky, you want to pass the microphone to Becky? Thanks, John.
Is it on? Is it on? I just want to mention it was 14 years in between audits. So the town went 14 years without having a professional audit. So I think to stay on top of this is really important.
That's also part of the reason why you saw so much surplus, and everybody's been asking about surplus. If we did an audit more regularly, that number would be a lot smaller.
Is the recommended schedule to be done annually to have a professional audit done? Is that what VLCT wants us? Okay. Kathy?
So just so you're really clear, if you were going by the exact definition of the VLCT, budget surplus would only be revenue from the previous year. So even though we've loosely used the term budget surplus, if you were in the accounting world, the correct definition would be unaccounted for fund balance. So if you looked at John Mudgett's audit, you would see that at the end of 2024, he deemed that we had $834,000 of unaccounted fund balance. So if you go and you listen to the audits, that's the term. You will not hear him saying surplus. And so you might think, why isn't he saying surplus? Because we were talking surplus. But in the accounting world, surplus would just be what we had last year from our revenues that were more than our expenses. So going forward, we're going to try to differentiate that. And it's been very hard with no audit for everybody to really get a good grasp on our revenues, especially because a lot of our grants come in not the same year that we spent the money. So we're getting a really good handle on that, and I feel good about the future that we'll be able to say, this was our revenue this year, this was our actual surplus, and this was in our savings accounts. So I hope that clarifies for any accountants in the room. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 14? Okay, seeing no other discussion, bring Article 14 to a vote. Article 14, shall the voters appropriate $5,000 for the Audit Fund, of which $5,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 14 passes as written. Okay. So it's a little bit after 11. If there's no objections, I would suggest that we do the next two articles and then move into the school budget portion of the meeting. Do Article 15. Shall the town create a schoolhouse maintenance and improvement fund to be used to maintain and improve the schoolhouse? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn, looking for a second. Dan. Okay, Article 15. Any discussion on Article 15? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll vote on Article 15. Article 15, shall the town create a schoolhouse maintenance and improvement fund to be used to maintain and improve the schoolhouse? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 15 passes as written. Article 16, shall the voters appropriate $15,000 for the schoolhouse maintenance and improvement fund, of which $15,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn. Was that you, Cindy? Okay, Cindy seconded. Okay, discussion on Article 16.
Does that have anything to do with the remedial possibilities with?
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is we have absolutely zero money set aside for anything, whether the roof blows off, we lose a shingle, or it needs paint. We have nothing currently. So we need to start that process. And this is, the start, just like we do any of the other town buildings.
But certainly the hope is that with the umbrella program, that's part of the concept there is that remediation, this umbrella program that Kathy organized and found and applied for, remediation that comes up is supposed to be paid out of that fund.
That evaluation, yeah.
Kathy?
We did pay $10,000 towards the Phase 2 evaluation. Which came out of our fund last year. Remember a year ago when we allocated, I believe, $32,000. Yeah. So of that $32,000, $10,000 went to our share of Phase 2. The Phase 2 total cost was $50,000. $30,000 came from the state, $10,000 came from Windham Regional Commission, and we paid $10,000. So the remediation that Court is talking about is, should we need to remediate, for instance, one might imagine, to try to get rid of the asbestos tiles in the floor and ceiling. I do believe that we have a very good chance, I can't say 100%, but a very good chance that the state will cover our remediation costs. It does have a lot to do. They would not pay to remediate it if a private developer were going to make a dance hall out of it. But if we use it as a community center or a community use, I feel good that we will be able to get that paid for by the state.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 16? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll bring Article 16 to a vote. Shall the voters appropriate $15,000 for the schoolhouse maintenance and improvement fund, of which $15,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 16 passes as written. So at this juncture, I would like to ask the school board members to come up to the front and switch out with the select board members, and we'll move into the school meeting.
Really shouldn't need another chair. Oh. Well, you're gonna have to sit on the floor, George. No, I'll get you a chair, don't worry.
The school meeting warning is on page 7.
Oh, God, I gotta get my coffee still. Slide down.
You want to bring? Okay, that's fine.
I know how a lot. Yeah, it's probably a big thing. Like, I'll scoot down.
Do you want, where are you going? You want to be here?
I'm gonna, yeah, because I have a spiel for the last 2 articles. But I spilled coffee all over multiple times today.
I think that microphone does work, yeah. Okay, thank you. At this point, I'd like to introduce the school board members. We have Dan Roth, Abigail Pelton, and Kate Fellows. So we'll start with Article 1. To elect a moderator for Article 1, to elect a moderator for a term of 1 year. Okay, there's a motion for Mike McLean and a second by Kathy. Nominations don't need to be seconded, but thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other nominations for Article 1? Okay. Seeing no other nominations, Article 1, to elect a moderator for 1 year. All those in favor of electing me as moderator, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Okay, thank you. Article 2. Shall the electorate of the Windham School District ratify the district's longstanding practice of designating the Windham Town Moderator as the moderator of the Windham School District, and shall the electorate of the Windham School District recognize and agree to be bound by the 1-year term of the Windham Town Moderator? So I need a motion. Carolyn. Okay, and a second by Bill. Okay, discussion on Article 2. Abby.
That's what we did last year for the treasurer. So it's the same style. We've historically always used the treasurer, the moderator, it was who's been elected through town. So it's just, it'll eliminate the article for next year. So.
Okay.
Sorry, you came up on the second.
It was Bill Dunkel, seconded, sorry. Okay. Any other discussion on Article 2? Okay, seeing no discussion on Article 2, we'll bring Article 2 to a vote. Shall the electorate of the Windham School District ratify the district's longstanding practice of designating the Windham Town Moderator as the moderator of the Windham School District, and shall the electorate of the Windham School District recognize and agree to be bound by the 1-year term of the Windham Town Moderator? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 2 passes as written. Article 3, to elect all other officers required by law to be elected for the Windham School District. We can ignore that if Article 2 fails. School District Director, 3-year term ending in 2029. Kate, it's your your term? Okay. So looking for nomination for school district director. Pat.
I'd like to nominate Kate Fellows.
Okay. So nomination for Kate Fellows. Kathy, okay. Nominations don't need to be seconded, but they're, for emphasis, they're noted. Any other nominations for school director? And this is where Colin would say, I make a motion that the clerk close the nominations and cast one ballot for. So anybody want to make that motion in Colin's absence? Beth. So moved. Okay. Motion to close the nominations and cast one ballot for Kate Fellows. Okay. And I need a second on that. Seconded by Carolyn. All those in favor for Kate Fellows being a school director for 3 years, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes appear to have it and do have it. Thank you, Kate. All right, Article 4, to compensate the school directors $1,250 each as included in the proposed school budget for 2026-2027. Looking for a motion from the floor. Pete moves the motion. Second, Carolyn. Article 4, any discussion? Dan.
Yeah, now that we've closed the school, when the kids choose to go to another school, there's a school board that runs. There's a school board that runs wherever the kids are going, whether it's to Jamaica or wherever they're being sent. So when we had our school, we had issues in our own school to run, and over many years, Howie Iris was the one representative for Leland and Gray. And since we are now part of school systems where our kids are going to other places, why are we having a three-member school board and all of the expenses that go with that?
Okay. Somebody from the school board want to address that?
As you'll see in our later articles, this has not been an easy time for this board. It has been nothing but a wild ride since I've stepped onto the board. There is still a lot of work to do to have legislation recognize that our community needs to stop harming the kids and the students and the families with the just constant change and chaos. We have a lot of things that still need to get done, and the fact that we even have a district still is why we've got these articles on here and are allowing us to vote to make a statement up to Montpelier. So in the future, if things change, I mean, that may be the rug could just get yanked out from under us again, and this board could not exist. That may be the route that legislation takes. I'm going to fight for that not to be. I believe our board will also be fighting for that to not be the case, so we can advocate for our families here in the community. It is not easy work. It takes a lot, and I would encourage folks to realize the amount of energy and time that this board puts through is pretty intense.
I totally got it when you had to hire teachers and you had issues with buildings and everything else. Now the building is managed by a different group. Windham is managing the building. Yeah. So right now you have buses to manage and you've got some things, but where Howie Iris did one person for the high school for years and years and years.
We still have that. That's Crystal Corby.
But basically, do we really need 3 board members on our school board to handle all of the 10 kids that we have going to school?
Us being able to maintain a status as a non-functional district without a school gives us a lot of flexibility within the supervisory union for advocating our needs. So I hear what you're saying from a financial, you're right, it's less to manage, there's not a teacher, there's not a principal, but maintaining us as a district gives us so much more, kind of a bigger seat at the table, and if we go away as a district, the whole town loses a lot of chance to speak up and discuss what you all want. We just wouldn't get as big of a say.
Michael.
Yeah, I think I might be confused, but it sounds like you're contemplating the possibility of reducing the number of select board directors. I mean, if that's the contemplation, that is not allowed. The composition of the board is dictated by statute. So if we choose to continue to have school directors, it's got to be 3. If we choose not to, we could look at merging with another district. I think that might be something we might want to do a lot of research before we do, especially with all the changes that are happening up in Montpelier currently.
And just to be clear, merging into another district is not something that's contemplated by this meeting or has been contemplated by any meeting. Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question, Dan?
That answers my question.
Okay. Any other discussion on this article? Okay, seeing no other discussion. Article 4, to compensate the school directors $1,250 each as included in the proposed school budget for 2026-2027. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 4 passes as written. Article 5. Shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $598,130, which is the amount that the school board has determined to be necessary in the ensuing fiscal year? The Windham School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $14,473, which is 2% higher than per pupil education spending for the current year. Looking for a motion from the floor.
So moved.
Carolyn moves the motion. Okay, it's been seconded by Crystal. Article 5. Any discussion? Pat.
Yeah, I had a question on the budget with regards to the bus. I know that the bus has been replaced, but we never have heard any discussion about what happened with the bus. So could you educate us, please?
So I'm not quite sure the root of your question, that we have a bus or what's going on with transportation?
I think just the timeline.
For the older bus?
Yeah, what happened to the old bus? How did we get a new one? I think that's what the question is.
Yeah, like where the steps look like.
Oh, I'd have to go dig through my emails. Pat, I can get you that answer. I don't, oh, Michael knows.
Yeah, so we did get a new bus, and it's lovely. The old bus was having some major issues with rust and wasn't going to be serviceable. The short story long, at least from what I could hear at the various meetings, was that the bus, when it went in for repairs, or for inspection rather, during the inspection process, which cost money, they found that it wasn't going to be serviceable, and when they got done, Greg, who works for the supervisory union, effectively indicated that it was going to cost more to try to bring it somewhere to sell than it was going to be to effectively scrap it. So the bus no longer exists. The supervisory union, via Greg, decided to scrap the bus without consulting your school board.
Special.
True story. So, does that answer your question?
Well, it gives me some information. I guess it's a big expense and it's something we support, having transportation. We need to have the children transported safely. I just wanted to know what had happened because it hadn't been on the list of expenditures for the past year, and it are there any other expenditures like that that could possibly catch us? Nothing where, nope, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we also had a fund that we've been building over the years to cover the bus. The other thing I'll say is that we
Can you
did.
use the mic, Steve?
That is like little mic.
Oh, you gotta turn it on. It's off.
Oh, George has absolute power.
Turn it on with the button on top of it, right here.
Right here.
On the handle.
Right, that's what I like. I touched it.
Hello.
Here's the other one, maybe. Oh, now it's on, yeah.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is we did run a competing budget without getting into the stance of whether or not we should have transportation. We just looked at it from a budget of if we didn't have transportation, hypothetically, what would that do to our numbers? It actually showed that, you could see it on page 53. We have a transportation sub-grant that we'd be losing, and the competing budget showed that in the comparison that we would have a lower tax rate with transportation than without. So that was one of our considerations.
Okay. Maureen.
So the bus is being paid for this year in this new budget? Where?
We already purchased the bus.
With what? Where were the funds for? Where were the funds for?
We had funds set aside for the bus, if anything was to happen. And when it happened, we used the money that was in the fund to purchase a new bus.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing no other discussion, I will bring Article 5 to a vote. Article 5, shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $598,130, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary in the ensuing fiscal year. The Windham School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $14,473, which is 2% higher than per pupil education spending for the current year. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 5 passes as written. Article 6, shall the voters of the Windham School District authorize moving any operational surplus from fiscal year 25 to the operational reserve fund? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn moves the article. Kathy Scott seconds. Article 6, any discussion? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 6 to a vote. Article 6, shall the voters of the Windham School District authorize moving any operational surplus from fiscal year 25 to the operational reserve fund? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 6 passes as written. Article 7, shall the Town of Windham declare that the current statewide education funding system has failed the people of Windham and is no longer capable of providing the equitable and convenient education guaranteed under the Vermont Constitution, and that repeated legislative inaction, including the flawed implementation of Act 73, has produced unsustainable property tax burdens that disproportionately harm small rural towns? Looking for a motion from the floor. Crystal moves. Kathy Scott seconds. Discussion on Article 7. Abby.
So this vote asks a simple question. Is Vermont's system of education funding, including Act 73, working for the children and families of Windham? This is not about politics. It's about whether our kids can get to school safely, have real choices, and learn in a fair system, as the Vermont Constitution promises. The problem starts with the 1997 court case. In Brigham versus State, the Vermont Supreme Court found that our education funding system was unconstitutional. Why? Because it let children's opportunities depend on how wealthy their town is. The court said education must be equitable and accessible. Nearly 30 years later, Vermont spends some of the highest per student amounts in the nation. Enrollment is down, student performance is slipping fast, and property taxes keep climbing. Higher spending should mean better outcomes and stable taxes, but it hasn't. Windham is not a typical district. We do not operate an elementary school, we tuition students elsewhere. Our middle and high schools are governed by the West River District. We run our own school bus because the WCSU contractor won't serve our town. Our student population is small, but actually growing. And about half of our elementary students go to Townsend or Chester public schools, and half go to independent schools. Yet Windham residents face some of the largest property tax increases in Vermont, despite being efficient and tuitioning. The statewide funding formula simply does not fit our town. Act 73 promised to set a foundation funding formula, consolidate district, reduce fragmentation, control long-term costs, but the rollout has failed. Redistricting maps don't account for geography. Consolidation plans are still unclear. Current tax relief depends on temporary surpluses, not real reform. Major costs, health insurance, transportation, special education, are still unaddressed. For Windham, consolidation will end elementary school tuition choice, threaten our bus service, move governance to a multi-town board where Windham has little or no voice. Equity isn't abstract. It means kids can get to school. Right now, Windham guarantees that. A larger district may not. Currently, there are two proposals, the House 27 district map, which collapses 119 plus districts into 27. Decisions are made by a large multi-town board. Windham loses elementary choice and transportation with no guaranteed tax relief. Or the Senate voluntary multi-stage plan starts with voluntary mergers, eventually 11 large districts. Autonomy is only temporary, transportation is still at risk. Neither plan protects local choice or transportation. Neither plan supports local governance or offers real sustainable tax relief, but threatens to shift governance away from local decision-making. Why this vote matters. We are required to provide equity and access. Transportation is essential. Without it, equity fails. We value choice and community. Families need public and independent school options that work. Current consolidation proposals prioritize large cookie-cutter districts over local needs, which would remove choice and force families to send students to far-flung schools in their town. Case law has provided for constitutional guarantees. Brigham versus State promised real enforceable equity. Neither plan safeguards it for Windham. We must convey to our elected officials that enough is enough. We can no longer wait while they continue to tax us to death. They are making Windham and Vermont too expensive for regular people to live here. What voting yes means, it declares the current system has failed Windham, demands real equity, accountability, and reform, protects school choice, transportation, governance, and fair taxes. It does not withdraw Windham from the system or cancel funding. It is a call for meaningful reform, not just reshuffling. Vote yes and contact our state representatives and senators to demand school choice for all of Windham's K through 12 students. Real equity in funding, guaranteed transportation and school choice, tax relief tied to real structural reform, not temporary fixes. Supporting this vote is asking for real accountability, fairness, and a future where Windham has a voice. Thank you.
Kathy, I see your hand.
Is there anything in the board's opinion that the town could do with regard to action with the state in terms of somebody being there, somebody pushing, somebody asking questions on a regular basis who has the time to do that? It bothers me that this has been going on for so long and it's just getting worse and worse. And I feel as if we really want to retain autonomy, if we want to make Vermont a place where people can live and afford to live, we have to, this vote will, if it passes, it's great, but then what? How do we make sure that it gets implemented. You know, it has to go to the Rules Committee and all that kind of stuff, and the next thing you know, it's diluted to nothing. I'm just asking your opinion.
Continue contacting your legislators and representatives and making them aware. Oh, we have a representative here.
I saw Kathy's, and our representative, Mr. Charlton, is here, but I'll recognize Kathy right now.
Appears to be off.
There, that works, yeah. I was just also going to point out that Tom Charlton is here, and maybe he could speak. I don't know what the rules are about that. But also, I would like to encourage people to come to your meetings, because I don't have any grandchildren or children here, and it sometimes kind of bothers me that I know everybody is busy, I get that, but this is a chance at every school board meeting to get a coherent message together. And I know that most of us in this room look like we have gray hair. So, I think if we can reach out, maybe help offer babysitting or whatever it takes to get parents to get more involved with you all. I'll babysit for anybody that needs to go to the school board meetings.
Thank you, Kathy.
I saw Carolyn's hand next. Sorry, Bill. Getting your steps in today.
Thanks. Abby, I have a question. So as a school board several years ago, and which I think included Beth and Antje and myself, were wending our way through Act 46, we passed the towns, we created, we moved, and the town supported the legislation, basically the local legislation that would allow, if the school closed, to send our kids to any of the schools in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And my vision at the time was that there might be people who wanted to go to Chester, you could go to Grafton, you could go to any place, and we wouldn't be locked in to the towns that were part of the district at the time. So, and I have blessedly not been following education funding because it's stressful, and I'm not really allowed to be political. But my question for you is, if this passes, if any of this stuff passes, will that obviate our move all those years ago to allow kids to go to any school that they wanted?
Yes, so currently our district is K through 6, and then we have middle school and Leland and Gray, and Crystal's our representative for the West River District. The challenge with our current setup is if somebody's going to, say, the independent school goes through 8th grade that they've chosen to go to. Middle school, they're not allowed to because we're a part of the supervisory union and they have to leave the K through at 6th grade and go to 7th grade in Townsend. That's something we have to continue to work on. But we also have, if this passes, our district is on the chopping block. That's just the reality of it. All non-operational towns that have choice are on the chopping block to just go, and we would have no say in it. These articles are really a chance to let legislation know that we want a voice. We want to have a say in the education of our kids, and how can we retain that? So my thought is, your question was what would happen? My hope is that they pass and we are therefore in a better position to say, it's not just the board screaming from the top of the mountain. We've got Windham voters in our back going, this is what Windham wants. We want to be heard. We want our students to be cared for.
Crystal, I see your hand, and then I'll recognize you, Michael, after Crystal.
So to answer Carolyn's question, it will get rid of our choice. This stuff, it literally, I'd love to say it changes every day, but it is every single hour. The last time I looked, they had us merged in with like Bellows Falls. I think that's like Windham Northeast, if I'm correct. I had sent Abby and Kate, I believe, information. Deborah Bucknam and the Liberty Justice team, they are involved in a lawsuit to keep towns that have choice towns. Jamaica is gonna have a vote to close their school. They also want out of the Leland and Gray Union. So I don't know where we're at with that. I know I had given, I think, Abby and Dan information about a group working with Chrissy Haskins and those folks. But if we want K through 12 choice, any parent that wants it, like, you have to come forward and help. You can't expect us all to do the legwork alone. I mean, I will fight for you, but I'm not going to do all the work. It takes everybody to make this happen. Everybody has to do their part. Make no mistake about it. If this happens, you are going to lose your school choice.
Two more. Yes, Michael. Behind you, Bill.
So I'm looking at this from two different sides of the coin, I think. It's clear that we have to do something. I know there's been 30 years of ideas and concepts and plans, this and act that, and so far the system isn't working. Clearly, at some point when you receive your tax bill, we're going to stop being able to afford it. Last year, we had abatements because people couldn't afford the taxes. Now, it was compounded, right? It was compounded because we did a reassessment like we're supposed to. So the values of all of our properties went up. But we got pummeled. And guess what? Your taxes this year, they're gonna suck. To be blunt, sorry. And it's not from the town, right? The town, yes, our taxes are, we've got to pay for roads and so forth. And it's not because our school district is acting out of sorts, right? They have got the costs completely cut back. The only thing we can get rid of now is transportation. And that's fine, I suppose, if you want to put more burden on the shoulders of parents and make them drive to the bottom of the hill or drive to wherever. But that's not going to save you much. It's going to save you pennies. It's going to be painful if things don't change. This year, the last I looked, it was like a 10% increase. And that's because they're buying it off with surplus. It's not because they're fixing a problem. Things are only going to get muddier as time goes on. And at some point, folks like me are going to move out of the state because I can't afford my property anymore, even though it's been in the family for a bazillion years and I'm proud of it and I want to live there and I want my kids to have it. I'm not going to be able to afford it. The only people that are going to be left in this state are the people who have giant bank accounts. They're going to have to buy all the land because the rest of us won't. So we need to send a message to Montpelier. We need to tell them that enough is enough. figure it out, come up with a plan that's a little bit more reasonable for those that live here, those that choose to buy property here, have second homes. I'm okay with people having second homes in the town of Windham. Probably 2/3 of the housing stock in the town of Windham are second homes. They pay taxes too. Maybe it's different, although last year I think the rate was about the same. The second part of this is, apart from me belly aching about how much money it costs, is that I think this is an opportunity. It is the opportunity for our town to speak up and convey to people in Montpelier that we also, as small as we are, can have an effect. We can recognize that there's an issue. We can also recognize that change needs to happen. And for us, at this point, that change looks like choice. For us, we are right in smack dab in the middle and close to nowhere. So for us, it's easy for some parents to go towards Londonderry or Manchester where they work. For others, maybe Londonderry is good, or Jamaica, whatever direction they happen to go to and live and work out of most of the time. But for right now, we don't have a school. If we don't have a school, the best choice, given our proximity to everywhere but nowhere at the same time, is school choice, and that is K through 12. Because when you get to 6th grade, you shouldn't have to go to Londonderry, and then your parents are going to have to figure out how to make that work with their life when they work in Manchester, all that other houdini. Thank you.
Okay, Dan.
The elephant in the room is the tax system. We send up 2 times what we get back. More like we get pretty close to 3 million up and 1 million back, I was told last year. So everyone likes to have income sensitivity. Everybody likes to have somebody else pay for your bills. But the reality is it's outrageous. It's run out of money. There was a court case in Killington over 10 years ago where the Vermont Supreme Court told the legislatures to come up with a new tax system. And the current legislature has loved the current system, and they basically have a system that they can tax us unlimited. It comes down and says, okay, this is your tax bill, and the locals say, God, I didn't do it. The state of Vermont did it. So now we need a new tax system. It started out with the Upper Kingdom not being fair, and they didn't have enough money. So they gave a lot of money to the Upper Kingdom, and we're a rich town. We're near the ski resorts, so therefore we can pay more. So the system's broken. It is not being addressed by the legislature. It is not being fixed. They have not come up with a competitive system that works, even though the Vermont Supreme Court told them to. So the issues that we're skirting around is nobody likes their education tax bill, and what it does, my taxes doubled. I'm retired, and I want to do a couple trips before I'm in a box in the ground. I want to have some fun. I don't want to give all my money to the state of Vermont just to survive and not travel anywhere, just go out and look at our wonderful weather. So I'm a little bit pissed because of what's been handed to me. My taxes doubled. I don't particularly like that. I'm retired. Now, what I'd like to see is the state of Vermont do what Ireland does. Ireland only charges $300 a year in house taxes because they want old people to stay in their houses and not be forced out of them. We have a system where our income sensitivity, if you're rich and you have 600 acres, you can put it in non-use and not pay a goddamn thing. There's somebody in this town that pays a few $1,000s more than I do. I have 2.5 acres, and they pay just a little bit more than I do, and they have 600 acres because it's in non-use. So you can't give away to the rich people non-use taxes and then take care of the poor people that make nothing, and the poor slob that worked his whole life and has a retirement income is paying through the nose. So it's nice to have somebody else pay for it, but until the legislature is told that we need a new tax system, and I was hoping our legislators would show up here today, because I want a piece of bacon here. I'm pissed at the current system, and we have to make do with it, and everybody's got to make apologies for our taxes. But in the last 30 years, our taxes have continuously gone up. So the system of who's in charge of the legislature needs to come up with a new tax system that's fair. Thank you.
I'm going to recognize Kate.
I just want to, for those of you that know me, my optimism might be a flaw. But when you have the reason why I think what was written in sending that message up is important is because this is not a binary choice. This is a boggle board. There are so many ways that Act 73 can go. And for those of you that cannot hold hope for that, I will hold that hope for you. That there might be an outcome here that we actually like, or some of us benefit from. So while there's really scary implications of what will happen if it goes through as is, it is still moving. And I believe that that might give us potential for something to happen that we can't anticipate that is positive. So I just want to say that out loud. This board is looking for positive ways that some third option or whatever shows up. But I just want to put that out there as it's really easy and important to say that this could be devastating. It might also be a silver lining. So I just float that by you as well.
Kathy?
I just got to tell you, I had a conversation maybe 4 or 5 years ago when Act 46 was roaming around with Bill Anton. And it was when I made a decision that I didn't trust Bill Anton this much. And that was when he told me that within 10 years, the Windham students would be farmed out to Bellows Falls, Brattleboro, Manchester. There would be nothing up here. And people would say, oh, he's so nice, he's so helpful, he was very kind to Beth when she was on the board, to her face. But he still was manipulating in the back. And unfortunately for the town, we didn't have the guts to fight back and demand that we be allowed to keep a school because we didn't realize what the ramifications would be when it went away. That they were far-reaching beyond nobody going to the building. Whether you have 2 kids in a building, 30 kids in a building, we didn't realize that we were being slowly rinsed off this hill as if we didn't exist. And if we don't have somebody, Ernie Friedley's son is sitting here, and Ernie Friedley for years screamed at us about the cost of school. We've never gotten our behinds up there to fight for what the legislature won't fight for. What are we going to do about that? When are we going to get off our duffs? We have a committee for housing. We have a committee for activities. Where the hell is the committee for tax relief?
Okay. Any other discussion on Article 7? Yes, in the back.
Sure. Thank you. Just one quick question in regards to taxes and education tax. One of the things that I've never understood about the property tax bill is why is non-homestead less than homestead? Or like you said, they're about equal, I guess. I guess they were last year. Does that make sense? And can that be explained?
So my understanding is every town is different, and it's anomalous that Windham's taxes are different lower for non-homestead than they are for homestead. Other towns, if you go to Londonderry, it's the opposite. and has been the opposite. And every town is different, and it varies year to year based on a very complex tax formula. And that's the basis of my understanding, but maybe the school board can shed some light on that. I don't know. Or Kathy.
I think one critical thing is we were a very long while without reappraisal. So we all got hit because we were reappraised. If you look at us now in comparison to every town in Vermont, our rate is exactly 1-to-1. I mean, it's a what they call a 100. I think we're at like 99. So if we hadn't just had the reappraisal, our rate is really good. But we all were hit because people, if you multiply a low number multiplied by a big number, it's still going to be bigger. And so we all suffered, with quotes around it, because we weren't reappraising ourselves every 3 years or 5 years or however you want to do it. So I think part of it is understanding the formula and seeing our rate is good now, and we won't be reappraising until I don't know when. We'll be hit again by that. But it is good when you try to look at Windham in light of all the other towns. At least our rate is under control.
Does that answer your question? More or less? Okay. Any other discussion on Article 7? Michael?
Yeah, so just to further the answer, the short story long is our tax rate for the school budget is calculated using the CLA, common level of appraisal, and that's a whole thing where she was talking about the reappraisals and so forth. The non-homestead taxes, however, are set by the legislature each year. They determine what that rate is going to be. One could argue that they could change that rate to decrease the amount that the homestead taxes are being, or how much the homestead taxes have to make up for. Although I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but that's a whole different conversation.
Okay. All right, Pete, I see your hand. There's a motion to call the question. That ends all discussion on the article. That requires a second and a 2/3 vote. Is there a second? Kathy is seconding the call the question. We'll vote on that. All those in favor of ending discussion on this article, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes, so we'll bring the article to a vote. Article 7. Shall the Town of Windham declare that the current statewide education funding system has failed the people of Windham and is no longer capable of providing the equitable and convenient education guaranteed under the Vermont Constitution, and that repeated legislative inaction, including the flawed implementation of Act 73, has produced unsustainable property tax burdens that disproportionately harm small rural towns? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Article 7 passes as written. Article 8.
Excuse me, Mike, could you clarify which Kathy seconded this last? Okay, thank you.
Yep. The calling the question, Kathy Scott, sorry. Article 8. Shall the town direct the school board to formally communicate this position to the Vermont Legislature and to notify state officials that Windham is prepared to explore all available legal and political avenues to protect its taxpayers and students unless meaningful structural reform is enacted during the current legislative session? Looking for a motion from the floor. Dan? Okay, you want to move you'll have the opportunity to discuss, but we got to bring it to the floor first. So moved. Second by Kathy Scott. Okay. Dan, discussion.
Yeah. The Upper Kingdom took a lawyer and said our kids aren't getting an equal education, and then Vermont stood on its head to accommodate them and redid the entire tax system, and that's what we've been living with, and now they've run out of money and they keep raising our taxes. So why don't we look at joining with some other towns, hiring an attorney and doing a class action suit that our taxes are illegal, just like the Northeast Kingdom did, because we're paying more than everybody else. It's illegal, and let's let some nice young lawyer make his mark on the world and get us a fair tax system.
Okay. Any other discussion on Article 8? Abby?
As I had mentioned before, what the students and families specifically in Windham have been through is incredibly challenging to even wrap your head around. There has been constant change, constant shuffling, and it does not appear there's any consideration as to how that impact is going to continue moving forward with our students. It just, to have families that have kids in independent schools thinking, are they just going to not be able to send them there? If we all end up as a district, not as under a supervisory union, but on a supervisory district with a small board, a large board, and small representation on that board, we could be looking at, if high schools change, sending to Brattleboro or to Bellows Falls. None of these futuristic outcomes are anything that families currently here in Windham, I think, would be on board with. So it is imperative that we are advocating for our community and whatever level that may be. So if it is collaborating with other communities, that's the guidance that this board would need to hear to take that action, because we're willing to step up, but it's going to take the voices from the community to support that. So, thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 8? Pat?
Yeah, I'm wondering if the board has considered, in terms of types of communication, what you might do. I think it would be a good idea to send people up to Montpelier to testify, as well as sending letters and certainly a letter writing campaign. But what you mentioned communication, what had you been thinking about, and what ideas did you have?
Linda, we've sent out multiple emails to families and encouraging them to write to legislation, to write to our board that we could share at our meetings. So it's, as Crystal had mentioned earlier, it's gonna take the community to get behind. And
Right. I think the question was specifically, when in the article, direct the school board to formally communicate. What is that communication? I believe, is that the question? Okay.
So that we would be able to take this article and communicate that if this passes, clearly the constituents here in Windham want something to be happening with our students, and we need some form of solid ground. It's just been nonstop. So how would we communicate that? That could be, we said, collaborating with other communities, sending a letter that we could formalize together as the board, for sure. It could be instructing our attorney to send a letter to Montpelier.
Could we add that to our agenda for our school meeting?
We certainly can. If the community wants us to be a lot more active on that, we will happily be more active on that. So if that is what we want to formally communicate, that we're on board.
I mean, I do think there are some things here that people have no idea. In a rural community, that is often the case. But look at the whole issue of the school bus. There's no way to get our kids to school unless we actually have a bus. Mm-hmm. And I think the legislature should hear what this means to families who live in areas like this.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on Article 8? Okay. Seeing no other discussion on Article 8, we'll bring it to a vote. Shall the town direct the school board to formally communicate this position to the Vermont Legislature and to notify state officials that Windham is prepared to explore all available legal and political avenues to protect its taxpayers and students unless meaningful structural reform is enacted during the current legislative session? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 8 passes as written. Article 9, to transact any other business that may legally come before this meeting. Anybody have anything? If Representative Charlton, would you like to speak in front of the assembly? Yes, Carolyn.
Mr. Moderator, I would move that we interrupt the orders of the day and allow our state representative to speak with us.
Okay. There is a motion to interrupt the orders of the day and allow the state representative. So all those in favor, that we'll call for a second on that one. Seconded by Pat. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed say nay. All right, Mr. Charlton, you have the floor.
Thank you. I go to 3 other town meetings, and the whole time I'm there, I'm looking forward to coming here. You have maybe, but I don't know if you have a complete idea of how important what you just did is. And I left Grafton early, the poor folks, to come up here and be here when you made this vote. You have earned the credibility to make that statement. And the trick with a resolution is getting them to pay attention to it when it gets there. Your board, if they ask me, I will do everything to make sure the right people get this in person and enough people get it that they can't pretend they didn't. And there are all kinds of ways that we can do this. You are absolutely right, and I am 150% behind the decision you did. I didn't speak ahead of time because it's your decision to make. But having made it, there are other communities all over the state in similar situations, and they need to know that they can say it. I would like to tell you that I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about the possibilities. All the proposals that are there are not particularly good, but there's no such thing as something that starts in Montpelier and looks anything the same when they're done with it. So there is room for it to be changed, and if it's going to be changed in a way that helps rural communities, y'all need to speak. Now, in my assessment, and this has only been whispered a little bit in conversation, if the Brigham decision was correct and the system we had before was not meeting the requirements of our state constitution, then based on the same court case precedent, Act 60 is not constitutional. And the funding has got to change. The expense has got to be dealt with differently, and it has got to be equitable. And all of my towns are smaller towns. So, yeah, yours at least has heard, but I can find out who needs to hear. All of the committees, the committee chairs, the Agency of Education, the governor, everybody needs to have this in their hand. We'll make it happen. Yeah. I think there is enough to be said certainly to challenge Act 60, which will essentially force a new funding system to be devised and not endless tweaking on one that doesn't work. I think that there is both opportunity and grounds for small communities to do this as a class action suit. The rural caucus in Montpelier is bipartisan, bicameral, sizable and vocal. And they have repeatedly in that group been discussing how on earth do we move things forward to protect the small communities. I'm not sure why we have a rural caucus, because that seems to me that's the majority of the state. They should go have an urban caucus and talk to themselves and let the rest of us run the place, because that's who we are. But there are groups in Montpelier that I think would be encouraged by that and would support it.
Can you help organize that for the school board?
I can help find the people who can. Not being a lawyer, they always confuse me. But finding somebody who shares the concern and who has the ability to do it well, we can look.
We need them. You think we should get a lawyer and raise 20 grand and go with some other towns and apply to how we are not getting a fair shake with our taxes?
I think if we find a lawyer that's interested in taking the case as a whole, they will know the answer to that question, whether individual towns need to get their own attorney. I don't. I stay as far away from litigation as I can get as a general rule. But somebody who is an attorney might be able to answer that question better than I am able to.
Representative Charlton, as one of your predecessors, I'm going to ask you to potentially take those two resolutions or those two motions that we've just made and make 180 copies and have them distributed to everyone's desks on the floor of the House and the Senate. And I'll also say one of the reasons that Act 60 has never been overturned is because it's never been successfully legislated up to the Supreme Court. And that may be something that people can think about. So I thank you for your service and hope that you will bring our words to your colleagues. And by the way, I was part of the formation of the Rural Caucus, and I highly recommend that you participate in that. I'm sure you're already doing that. And work strongly with Laura Sibilia, because she is a strong supporter of what's going on here. She helped bring forth the waiting study, which unfortunately came to us a little bit too late to survive. But again, appreciate your work. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. Thank you for forming that group. That's kind of where I find my people up there, is in the Rural Caucus. I already have a mental list of a lot of people. And 180 legislators, one of them, we know exactly how to get this to their hands. Yep. Pages. That's what they're for, right? Any other questions on this particular issue? I'll be here for the rest of the day because I like being here. And, we can talk about town-related, other state-related stuff elsewhere. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Charlton. So that's going to, unless there's any other thing that anybody wants to discuss under other business related to the school. All right, seeing none, then we'll conclude the school board meeting, and thank you guys for your service. I would like to ask the select board, it's right now 12:16 by my watch, and I know people are probably hungry, but there's been a request by several members of the community to to have a few minutes of your time. So if, Bill, did you want to make a motion to disrupt the order of business?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to change the order of business and proceed to Article 24 to transact any other non-binding business that may be legally come before this meeting. The reason I want to do this is I have two announcements that I think are quite important for you to hear, and I know some people leave after lunch and might not be able to hear them if I don't do them now. So that's the reason I'm making this motion.
Okay. So I believe that's a simple majority to disrupt the order of business. So I'll need a second on that motion. Kathy, I saw your hand, Kathy Youngerman. So we're going to vote on disrupting the order of business to move Article 24, the non-binding business article, to the next article that we discuss. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. Article 24, to transact any other non-binding business that may legally come before this meeting. Bill Dunkel, we need to, I guess you have the floor. Go ahead. Sure.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Dunkel, and I have two announcements to make, and believe me, it's not a comfortable position to be between you and lunch, so I'm going to try to do this pretty quickly, okay? First announcement I'm making as head of our Energy Committee and the Town Energy Coordinator. As many of you know, for the last 5 years, the Energy Committee has built hundreds and hundreds of storm window inserts like this one for people in Windham and surrounding towns. We're going to build these storm window inserts again next fall. Downstairs at lunch, I will have a table which will have more information about the storm window inserts. You can look at a sample window. Let me just say that we have built hundreds of these. They're very easy to insert. They go from the inside of your house. It takes about 2 minutes to pop them in. Because they have a flexible foam barrier, they seal very tightly. I have these windows, Cord has some of these windows, a number of other people do, and they work really well. They will keep you warmer, they will cut down your heating bill, and they'll lower the carbon footprint of your house. If you think it's cold in here now, if we didn't build these storm window inserts that are around this room, you would be a lot colder right now. If you have windows that big in your house, we can build them for you. But a window like this one, it probably cost you $40. And it works really well. So if you're interested, come down to the table and talk to me. You can get more information. And if you want, you can sign up and we'll send a couple people over to measure the windows in your house. Okay, that's announcement number one. Taking a different hat off. Now I'm going to talk to you as the head of the Planning Commission. Okay. In June of 2024, the state legislature passed Act 181 over the governor's veto. Act 181 makes some changes in land use in Vermont. Some of these changes might affect you as a landowner. Let me, as quickly as I can, give you a quick idea about this. Representative Charlton, if I really misspeak and screw it up, come on up here and set me straight. Okay. One of the purposes of Act 181 is to figure out a way to build more housing in Vermont. We know that there's a huge housing crisis, especially a lack of affordable housing. One of the things that 181 does is it designates some parts of towns in Vermont as Tier 1 areas. And in Tier 1 areas, the incentive to get developers to build more housing is they won't have to go through the Act 250 process. Act 250 can be expensive, can be time-consuming. The idea is, let's try to concentrate housing development in downtown areas, in places where there's already kind of a collection of people, so that the housing doesn't spill out into the countryside and we have a lot of urban sprawl. Right now, most of the Tier 1 areas in the state, as you would expect, are in towns which have sort of, business centers and already have concentrations of population. According to the maps, the draft maps that have been produced, there's no area in Windham that right now is designated as Tier 1. Pretty obvious. Most of these Tier 1 places have town sewer and town water. We don't have that. We don't have a business district. But if I understand correctly, a town can request that a Tier 1 area be created in its vicinity. And some people think it would be a good idea if we tried to get the school building and the town office area designated as Tier 1. because that would mean sometime in the future, perhaps the town could work with a developer, and the developer might be able to put in some apartment buildings or some low-cost housing down around the school, maybe even convert the school building, and be able to do that without going through Act 250. So one thing the Select Board's going to have to think about in the next couple of months is, do we want to apply to have that part of our town be designated as Tier 1? Okay, that's an important thing to think about. Most of the land in Windham, most of your property and mine, is going to be designated by this new law as Tier 2. Tier 2 land, nothing much is going to change in terms of the rules that you have to abide by to develop your property, with one possible exception. That's called the road rule. And if I misspeak, let me know. The road rule says if you want to build a new driveway longer than 800 feet, or a private road longer than, I think, 1,200 feet, you will have to get an Act 250 permit. Now, that may not affect any of you unless you're planning to add a new driveway or a private road, but it might affect some people who want to build a new house in Windham or do something that would necessitate a long driveway or a private road. I think that rule, by the way, the road rule, is supposed to go into effect July 1st. And I think it's being reconsidered. I know the governor doesn't like the road rule. I don't know whether that's going to go in on July 1 or be postponed. More importantly, Tier 3 land is land that is environmentally particularly important. Tier 3 land, and there's Tier 3 land in Windham, might have, for example, a rare and endangered species on that land. It might have the headwaters of streams and rivers. It might be a wildlife corridor or a habitat connector. And those Tier 3 lands, one of the goals of 181 is to protect those, to make sure those lands are not developed inappropriately. I don't want to get too political, but climate change is real. No matter what the administration in Washington's telling you, it's going to continue. And as it continues, those habitat corridors and those forest connectors are going to be really important. So what Act 181 says is Tier 3 land will have to have an Act 250 permit before any development can occur. The Act creates something called the Land Use Review Board. The Land Use Review Board has created a tentative map of Windham, and it shows all the property in Windham and which land is Tier 3 land. I've looked at that map. I would guess, don't hold me to the number, there might be several dozen properties in Windham that have Tier 3 designation. What often happens, as far as I can see, is there'll be a piece of property and the house and some of the land around it will be designated Tier 2, which means none of the regulations change very much. But part of that same property might be designated Tier 3. And that would mean if you own a piece of property like that and you're thinking, well, maybe someday I want to build another house on my land for one of my kids or for an older relative. If you want to develop that Tier 3 part of your property, you're going to have to get an Act 250 permit, okay? Or if you want to subdivide your property and sell part of it. If it's Tier 3 that you're selling, the new owner is going to have to get an Act 250 permit. So here are, this is complicated, I know, but it's important that you understand this. I have written a simple two-page document entitled Act 181 in Windham, and I will put about a whole bunch of copies downstairs on the same table where I'm going to have the display about the storm windows. I would urge you to pick that up and take it home and read it. There are three things you can do to learn more about Act 181. One, next Monday night, the Planning Commission has a meeting. At that meeting, Matt Bachler from the Windham Regional Commission will be present. Matt knows a lot about Act 181, more than I do. And the whole meeting will be devoted to getting into the details of 181, trying to create a better understanding. If you want to come to that meeting, you can come in person. or you can attend online. This document that I've written gives you the Zoom information about how to get to that meeting if you want to attend online. The second thing you can do, on March 17th, the Land Use Review Board, which was created by Act 181, is going to have a public meeting online. And a member of the Land Review LURB will be there to explain at 181, especially the Tier 3 designations. You can ask that person questions about the Tier 3 zones in Windham. You can make comments. The draft map for Windham is not complete yet. It's a draft. And by the way, I've seen that map, and this document will give you a link. If you want to look at the tentative Zone 3 map or Tier 3 map for Windham, there's a link you can plug into your computer and you can look at the map. The map shows every property in Windham. You can go to your land. You can click on it. You can see whether any of your property is designated Tier 3, okay? So you may want to do that and be apprised. For many of you, this may not have any effect at all, but for some of you, it might have considerable effect on your property and on how you might want to develop it in the future. Okay? So I'm sorry to take so much time. You look hungry. That's okay. But I would urge you to pick up a copy of this. If you have any questions, come and see me. Representative Charlton, if I've messed it up, you can correct me, or you can ask Representative Charlton some questions. But I wanted to make sure you got that information before we break for lunch, because I know not everybody's necessarily going to come back after lunch. All right? Thanks for your attention.
Okay, I know Pete and Hunt wanted to speak also, so Pete, would you like to have the floor?
Hi, everyone. I'm Pete Newton from West Windham. I just want to speak briefly about this building. I have a couple of roles here, and one of them is the Town of Windham just got a couple grants awarded to do some work on the building, and the town hired me as a project manager to do grant implementation and to help them get through the project, spend the money. One of the grants is a MERP grant. It's a Municipal Energy Resilience Program, I think it is. And that's going to buy this building a new heating system and help us insulate it. And we're not going to insulate this room, but we're going to insulate the floor here and the floor below that, and we're going to weather strip around it so that the downstairs in this building are going to heat a lot better. The heating system is going to be a ground source heat pump, which is really interesting because it's we're going to drill 3 600-foot wells back here behind the building, and all winter we'll pump the heat out of the ground and freeze those vertical sections, and then during the summer. In order to keep the system viable for decades, you pump some of that coal back out and cool the building. And then the next winter, you pump the heat that came from that back out in the ground. And since we're doing it with electricity generated from the solar field behind the town office, it's really a win-win-win. So that's a neat part of the project. The other grant was a Bruin grant, which is it's Park Service money administered through the Preservation Trust of Vermont, and with that those monies, we're going to finally get the entrance done. We're going to build some nice big stone steps out front and a new ramp, and we're going to replace the broken doors and put some better access. There's going to be a ADA parking space, a legal one. A couple other things. And then we're going to paint the building and restore all the sashes. And that contract has been awarded, or we picked a painter to do that. But we're getting the bids together to do the other work. So that's So that's my one role. My other role is that there's an outfit, we're all friends of this meeting house, but we have a small group called the Society of the Friends of the Windham Meeting House that's been around since about 1980. And basically that, it's a nonprofit, and we raise funds to help with maintenance on the building. They've done some significant projects. They put new foundation under the building. They work steeple work, roof work, painting, floors, plaster work, insulation, a lot over the years. But you're going to hear from us. We're going to give everybody in the community an opportunity to donate towards the painting, which is a big bill. So you're going to hear from us this spring and try and help, raise some money. Maybe we'll give you an opportunity to buy a gallon of paint or restore one of these windows or something. And I just have to say, as a great admirer of this building, I'm really honored to be hired to help you work through this. It's a neat project. Thanks.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, and I know Hunt wanted to speak about the CAC. I didn't see David Cherry. Was he? He's not here. Okay.
I'll be as quick as I can. Excuse me. I'm Hunt Fales. I'm the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. David Cherry is also a member. Al McLean, Ancha Rupert. Is Jenny here? Oh, there you are. Hi, Jenny. Okay, my first question is, who's familiar with the Citizens Advisory Committee? Wow, that's what I kind of thought. One of the things that we did this year is we changed the mission, which began in 1985, for housing rehabilitation, emergency loans. That could go for a septic, it could go for a furnace, it could do insulation, it could do roof repair, and we added small businesses to our mission also. So when you think about small businesses, anything that would if a truck breaks down and it's important for you to do your business, our loans are targeted to that. Could be a piece of equipment that you use. And anyway, it's a new addition. We're pretty clear on what type of rehabilitation loans for housing and families. So what happened is we came up, actually David Cherry designed this initial. B really made it viable. And it's a small brochure, has a QR code, and it links you directly to our website, our town website, where you can find out, you can get an eligibility form and also a packet that defines who qualifies for a loan. We're low to moderate income loans. And as I said, if you have an emergency, and something can happen in the winter, certainly with a furnace breaking down or a septic malfunctioning, we're here. And so hopefully I'll leave some of these pamphlets downstairs, but hopefully you know about the CAC. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunt. All right, so now I'm going to go to the body and see what you guys want to do. Here's your options. We can stay here and go through the last 8 articles of the meeting, or we can break and go downstairs for lunch. So if we don't break, I'm afraid May is going to be mad at me because I asked her to start heating the stuff up. So All right, I'm getting the sense that people want to disrupt the business of the day and go to lunch. And there's a motion that's been made, sort of, and been seconded to disrupt the orders. That was made by Carolyn, seconded by Kathy Scott, to disrupt the order of the day and break for lunch. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're going to break for lunch. It's now 12:37. We'll give you till 1:15. We're going to resume where we left off at Article 17. Article 17. Shall the town create a grant match fund to be used to fund ongoing grants and their matches? Looking for a motion from the floor. Maureen Bell moves. I'm looking for a second. Bill Dunkel seconds. Any discussion on Article 17? Okay, seeing no discussion on Article 17, bring Article 17 to a vote. Article 17, shall the town create a grant match fund to be used to fund ongoing grants and their matches? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 17 passes as written. Article 18, shall the voters of Windham close the Bridges and Large Structures Fund and transfer the balance of $160,639.90 to the Grant Match Fund? Looking for a motion from the floor. Kathy Scott and Kathy Fales, seconds. Any discussion on Article 18? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Brett Friedley. I'm not a registered voter, so I need approval to speak.
If there's no objection from the floor,
Thank you.
please.
Hi, I'm Brett Friedley. On this item, Bridges and Large Structures Fund, before the money is moved, there's some new information. There's a bridge inspection that was completed 4 weeks ago on the bridge that goes over Turkey Mountain Brook off of Burby Pond Road. And it recommends that the superstructure be spot cleaned to slow corrosion progression. So I was just concerned that releasing this money might make it unavailable for this new piece of work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay. Michael.
Just for clarity, we're not putting ourselves in a situation where we're not going to fund the replacement of bridges and large structures. We're moving the money from that account. We're removing that account. We're moving it to the grant match fund because that's where we're funding our bridge work and things like that. So we're actually trying to make it so that our accounting is much simpler and streamlined so we can account for all of our grants and so forth in one account versus trying to spread it out.
Okay, thank you for that comment and for the answer. Any other discussion on this article? Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll bring that to a vote. Article 18, shall the voters of Windham close the Bridges and Large Structures Fund and transfer the balance of $160,639.90 to the Grant Match Fund? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 18 passes as written. Article 19, shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for the grant fund, of which $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? Looking for a motion from the floor. Kathy Scott moves the article. Looking for a second. Bill Dunkel seconds. Any discussion on Article 19? Seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 19 to a vote. Article 19, shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for the grant fund, of which $100,000 will be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 19 passes as written. Article 20, shall the town create a talc mine maintenance and improvement fund to be used to support the ongoing maintenance and property development? Looking for a motion from the floor. So moved from Becky. Need a second? I see your hand. Okay. That was Ginny had the second. Any discussion on Article 20? Ginny Crittenden. Becky Phillips moved. Ginny Crittenden seconded. Any discussion on Article 20? Bill?
I'm just wondering, the mic should work for me, come on. I'm just wondering why there's not a specific amount of money attached to that.
That's in the following article.
It sort of parallels all the, where we're creating new accounts and then the next article funds them.
Sorry, thank you.
Any other discussion on Article 20? Okay, bring Article 20 to a vote. Article 20, shall the town create a talc mine maintenance and improvement fund to be used to support the ongoing maintenance and property development? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 20 passes as written. Article 21, shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for the talc mine maintenance and improvement fund, of which $100,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? Looking for a motion from the floor. Kathy moves and seconded by Bob. Any discussion on Article 21? Al?
Yeah, do we have any idea what the cost is going to be for what's on this article? What is it called? I know it's called the maintenance and improvement fund. Do we have any idea how much that's actually going to be? Is $100,000 just a broad amount of money that probably won't be that much money, or do we have any idea?
Yeah. So we don't really have a huge idea right now. The idea is, though, that we down the road might have some significant repairs or improvements or remediation that are involved with the Brownfields Umbrella Assessment Program. So tentatively, we're going to need mowing for sure in order to keep the fields that are up there, and then down the road we do see the need for maybe gravel work and potential remediation. That large sum of money was put there because we were given so much money with the property. We felt like that was a good place to leave a certain chunk of it, and some of this remediation work could be costly. So in the future years, if the remediation work comes in at a lower number and the mowing and maintenance of that site is lesser than we think, then we won't be adding as much money at all to that fund.
The other thing I would add to that is that we know that in somewhere between 10 and 20 years, we're assuming we have an issue with the dam and have to replace the culverts. We're looking at somewhere between maybe $200,000, $250,000, $300,000, depending on how prices change between now and 10 and 20 years. So it's in our interest to set aside a fair amount of money now, and I would think that in the future we might want to keep adding small amounts as time goes on and keep building that in an effort to make sure that we have the funds to repair the dam if we decide to keep the property.
And this ties into our next article as well, sorry.
Can you explain about the dam? Because I don't know the area at all.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little bit about that?
So where they have the pit, there's a pretty good sized pit. It's over 100 feet deep. That's my recollection anyway.
145.
Yeah, so it's a giant hole. And over time it filled up with water. There's a pretty good amount of water that's coming up through that. And at some certain point, a number of years ago, the water saturated the ground and spilled over onto McCandless's property. At that point, through the state and litigation and so forth, they ended up putting a culvert system where they created a dam and a culvert system that basically runs the water down the road and across the road to the brook down past McCandless's house. So at some point, hopefully not anytime soon, that is going to need repairs. And it's definitely in our interest to be prepared for that. And like I said, 10, 15, 20 years.
Our engineer said more than 20 years is very possible, but you should be prepared at that earlier point there. So the next article that we have is also dealing with money.
The dam, so you know, it's underground, it's buried at the moment, so you can't see it. It's only about 10 feet long, and it's built up on either side with riprap and then covered with grass. So if you go by and look at it, you won't see an official dam structure with water flowing over it. There's a spillway next to it, and then buried underground, there is a 10-foot dam there.
1 second. Yes, you have a question?
How did the town get this place and why? It sounds like a liability to me. I really don't understand the whole thing. Maybe someone could explain it just briefly, how we ended up with a liability when it was owned privately, right, before that?
No, it was owned by a company, a Talc company, and as a result of a class action lawsuit they had, it involved Johnson & Johnson, who was their primary customer. They went bankrupt and got out of the business. So they owned a number of different talc mines around the world, and they've begun to divest themselves of them. And we were looking for property in town to build a salt shed. They got wind of that and approached us to say they wanted to get rid of this property and they were willing to donate it. As far as liability goes, we're part of a class, or excuse me, a shared services insurance program with Passive, which is the state or the VLCT's insurance arm. So we're protected liability-wise by a liability insurance policy that we've already been through doing our due diligence with. So they're not, we're not at risk. We've got coverage if there is some kind of a liability claim. So that's where it came from. It was just an opportunity that came along. And like George said earlier, we were offered a substantial lump sum of money in addition to the property. So it seemed like a no-brainer because we can always sell it.
Sell it?
Or subdivide it at 75 acres. So we could subdivide it and sell pieces. We could build we can build a salt shed there. We've got 75 acres we need to decide what to do with.
Al, you had another comment or question?
Yeah, at what point do we as citizens of Windham get to check ourselves out?
The short story long is we're waiting for it to the investigation to make sure that there are no contaminants that we have to be concerned about. Once we know that, then we can provide access to it. But until we have all of that process complete, the phase 2 study complete, we can't allow access. It's just not, it would be inappropriate. However, there's probably an argument for a tour from the outside or something like that.
Bob?
I'd just like to clarify a little bit. That's a 145-foot hole, about 11 acres, and what it's doing is we're monitoring the level of the water when it increases so it doesn't flood down into the McCandless's property like it did previously. This tank that's in the ground transfers the water to a culvert system that drains the level off when the level increases. The lines of the liability there are pretty low. I had the same concerns as that gentleman back there just said when I first heard about it, because I said, who the heck would want that? But I happened to go through that, and I spent detail going through all of it, because I'm doing the electrical part. And I feel that it's a very low liability situation. It's just getting the technical stuff done with the permits and all the stuff that we need to keep up on. And that's basically what it is. If you go up there to see it, you're not going to see anything because it's just a tank in the ground. The dam is a dam, but you wouldn't even recognize hardly the dam because it's a hole with a level that if it has an overflow, if it gets too high, and that's what we're trying to do is keep it from going over the overflow. I don't know if that helps you.
Ben.
So just to clarify, is this $100,000 in addition to the funds that during the acquisition of the property, the 300-something thousand?
Yeah.
So for considering this like a new account, the account will be holding $100,000 earmarked for the Talc line.
Yeah, think about it as a savings account.
But the 350 or whatever, that's just rolled into the general surplus, as we're calling it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can look at it this way. We combined the quote-unquote, I'm going to call it surplus, even though it's not technically a misnomer. We combined the surplus into a bucket of $900-some thousand. We said, okay, well, what is the best way to use the money? Well, the best way for us right now is to take that money and put it into a savings account. This is one of those accounts that we're earmarking the money. It's the savings account that's designated for the use at the Talc mine. Currently, we may not spend anything this year. We'll probably spend small amounts, but in, let's say, 10, 15 years, we'll have a chunk of change in there to say, okay, we need culverts. Here's some new culverts. Or when the study comes back and says you had a diesel spill here at some point, you need to pull the soil out of there and replace the soil. It's going to cost you $20,000, let's say, magic numbers here, but we'll have the money in the account to say, okay, $20,000, we're covered, the remediation's done, and now it's usable property, and let's make it a, I don't know, park or something.
Yeah, it just seems interesting that you forecast the potential for upwards of $200,000 as expenditure going forward when we probably could have taken the $350 and earmarked it specifically for the property, because we're relying on assumptions that brownfield studies and stuff are going to be subsidized by another party. So it just seems interesting. I probably, if it were me, I probably would have just kept that amount associated with the transaction as specific to that property, but that's just me.
Yep, no, and you're correct. That is one way to look at it. You'll also notice in 22 and 23, we put 270, or we are recommending that we take $275,000 of that and putting it into an investment fund. And the idea there is to, instead of saying we're going to put the money in a savings account and gain, let's say, 3% interest, we're going to put it into an investment account so that we have access to the money, but in the meantime, we can gain 4 or 5 or 6% interest. And at the end of the year, instead of getting $120,000 in interest, we're getting closer to $150,000 or $175,000 in interest.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 21? Bill?
Just very quickly, I'm putting my energy coordinator hat on for a minute. Part of that property is a wide open field, it's about 20 acres. It's got great southern exposure. Potentially that could be leased to a solar company, and several megawatts of solar panels could be put in there. That would generate revenue. That would come back to the town, and the power from that might be usable for the town also. So it's another possible use. It's tricky. You'd have to get phase 3 power running there, which could be expensive, but it's another thing that we've thought about, at least in terms of how that property might be used.
Okay, Bob?
I wasn't going to plant the seed, but I think it's a good time to do it. That, we have ski areas around us, and that resource is going to be one of the greatest resources in the state of Vermont, if not the East. That has a permit situation there would be no withdrawal permit for minimum levels like in a stream or a pond or a brook that's governed by the state. And that resource is a perpetuating resource that you couldn't drain it down. Plus it's closer than Stratton, because I worked with Stratton for 17 years and I was involved with that snowmaking system. And it's a closer system, and it's networked, can be networked through right-of-ways of the road for the town, and it's closer than Mount Snow. And it's just something there that's there. We can perk their interest into it. I've actually talked to them just to see what they were thinking. But down the road, long range, over and above everybody, and like I said, I didn't really want to say anything, but I think it's a good time just to put that out there, that is a recognizable snowmaking system, water system, and Timberside is already built for the transfer for that. It has been sabotaged a little bit, but we built that through the same group that I worked with in Stratton. And it was set up to pump from the base area, which Tim, the owner of Timberside, is aware of the whole situation too. And so we have a footprint there that could feed Magic Mountain all the water they'd ever need for snowmaking.
Yeah.
That's you. I don't know what the dollar sign would be.
Okay. Kathy?
I think it's important to note that in this year's budget, we did set aside some money to do a long-range planning study. So that we will be having meetings and talking about this, and people can come and say, what about this and what about that? And we'll have a formal structure to take these ideas to create a long-range plan for that property. So we did set aside some of that money for that.
So just a question to the select board, the maintenance for the talc mine, the mowing of the fields, is that going to be handled by the road crew, or you're going to contract that out to somebody else? Up in the air? Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Al?
I have one more question. What insurance do we have for this property?
Passive, the shared pooled resource that the state provides, or that the VLCT provides. We're part of that, and we've already looked into it, so it's already covered liability-wise with passive.
They've actually been out to the site and didn't even to visit, so they know exactly what they're getting into, and they've identified really no real concerns, other than saying that we should probably put up some basic signage, which we've done.
Yeah.
Okay. Dion?
I've already addressed this someplace, but I'm just curious, the water in the talc mine, it reaches some level and then flows through the culverts to the brook, right? Is that what you just said? How's that being monitored? How do we know what the water quality is leaving the talc mine going into the brook? Is anybody focusing on that or thinking about that?
So it was monitored by the state for years, and in fact, for quite a while, the company who operated the dam was treating the water. What they came to realize is that the levels that were in the water are exactly the same as the levels of the water in the surrounding streams. So last year, year before last? A couple of years ago anyway, they approached the state and asked to stop treating the water, and the state found that given the fact that the water is the exact same water, there's absolutely no reason to treat the water. They were treating it with
Arsenic, anti-arsenic agents.
Yes.
Sorry? They were treating it with agents that cause the arsenic to not come out with the water. But they've since, what Mike was saying, they've since found that the arsenic levels in the water that were leaving the mine mirror the arsenic levels in the surrounding streams. So there's no reason to treat because that's what's naturally present. The only reason they were treating is because they didn't have that information about the natural watersheds before that.
So will it continue to be monitored though, the water, things change, right?
It's still, that's one of the aspects of the BRELA program, which is brownfields remediation. To make sure that that's going to be a safe, reliable assumption going forward.
They just did the samples of it, I think, right before winter, before it froze. So.
It's Dion, there's a permanent.
Will that information be released to the town report, or how will we?
I think we can do that once it's released to us for sure. Otherwise, it will never be available.
You should know.
got a permit associated with this. Part of the requirements of that permit are we have to have a dam tender that we have, and there has to be regular monitoring of various things to do with the lake. So some of it is the water coming out, some of it's the levels, and it's pretty involved. So there was a lot of thought and given to this whole operation after it overflowed. I guess it was 10 years ago.
Okay, any other discussion about Article 21? Okay, seeing no discussion on Article 21, we'll bring it to a vote. Shall the voters appropriate $100,000 for the Talc Mine Maintenance and Improvement Fund, of which $100,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 21 passes as written. Article 22, shall the town create an investment fund into which the town may place monies not required for immediate expenditure, to authorize the Selectboard to manage, invest, and reinvest the assets of said fund in accordance with state law and an investment policy adopted by the Selectboard, and to authorize the Selectboard to take all actions necessary to implement and administer said fund. Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn moves and looking for a second. Dave Osborne, seconded. Discussion, any discussion on Article 22? Al?
When you talk about investment, are you talking investing in stock market, in bonds, or you just talk about investing in the savings account for CDs?
I think that's part of the conversation with the policy. I would assume that we would want to be extremely careful how we invest and not invest in volatile funds. Of course, I'm not an investment banker. I don't know anything about investing for the well, maybe a little bit, but not enough. We would absolutely seek some guidance in terms of what we should invest and how we should invest it to make sure that we're careful with the funds. The idea is to create a path to gain some resiliency for the future and not jeopardize the funds. If we look at the long-term picture, it's in our interest to make sure that we're growing these funds so that we can use them for the things that come up unexpectedly. I don't know. That's going to be part of the conversation with what the policy looks like. Clearly, we haven't built one because we don't have the permission yet.
Well, we're certainly going to need people's input on that, so I would encourage you to come to the meeting floor and discuss it, because any input you have to be valued. Kathy?
It's just important to know, thank goodness, we do get a pretty good rate on our checking account because of Kathy Scott and others previously moving our bank account to TD Bank, where we get almost 4%. So last year, if you look in the annual report, you'll see under revenue, we had, I think, about $86,000 in interest that we earned. So we'd be looking, I would imagine, and as Michael said, to see could we do better than that, but not to the extent that we would incur risk.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 22? Pete?
Let's see, I'm in my personal life, I do like to put away money. I mean, I like to think that we can all save for a rainy day. But I'm a little bit interested if we're talking about after the audit, we had a surplus of almost $1 million, and we found a way to spend it all this year. And this isn't spending; this is obviously investment. But I wonder a little bit why some of this isn't coming back as a refund to cut our taxes next year. I mean, we're all talking about property tax relief, but $300,000, what is this? $275,000. I don't know. Do we need property tax relief? Do we need to keep this money? I guess it's a good idea to invest, but this is actually money that came out of our pockets. This isn't we all say our taxes went up, and it didn't come from nowhere. So, thanks.
Go ahead, George.
Part of that surplus money, like we alluded to earlier, was from the acquisition of the Talc mine property. So as the Selectboard, first speaking for these other two, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but we figured that we had a due diligence to keep some of that money for the same reasons that Ben Partridge alluded to earlier, in case there's something that came up at that dam site there. We would be able to deal with that down the road, and we figured why hold on to it without letting it grow and try and make more of that money. Seems like we don't foresee needing that money immediately. There's lots of other places in the budget where we did use surplus money that I guess was overpaid taxes in the past to buy down the commitments that we have going forward. But this particular chunk of money, I at least when we were going through it and trying to come up with these articles, saw it as a sort of extension of what came from the Talc mine. And I sort of saw it as our responsibility to not go and spend all that money immediately, to sort of hold on to it as our due diligence to the community for, making sure that that Talc mine is safe and a decent area for the town to, use and potentially get money off of and have in the future.
The only thing I have to add to that is we did, as part of the due diligence, one of the, expensive potential downsides is if there's another event where the dam overflows and the siphon system with the piping that goes down through the stream is damaged. We got the engineer to develop an estimate for us as to what it would cost to replace that. And that was $220,000. So there were video inspections done, Charles looked at it, it's all in good shape now, and the likelihood is it'll never fail. But part of our negotiation was to say, okay, but what if? What if we have another event like where it overflows without the dam, or without the spillway, or without the siphon system they call it? Then it's left to the taxpayers to pay for that. So we had the engineer come up with an estimate of what it would cost to replace that system, and that's in today's dollars. So, in the future, it could be even more, but he came up with a $220,000 estimate. So that was part of our negotiation, and I think the idea here is to protect that money in the event that something dramatic does happen, and in the meantime, you could be earning some interest on it while it sits there.
Mike.
So this is, I think both Cord and George bring up some important thoughts, and I do agree that it's sort of an extension of that money, and the idea is to keep that money somewhere safe where we can use it in the event something happens, right? The other thing that I wanted to bring up is I have long been confused when we look at the budget, because we always look at the budget with the first two articles, highway budget and general fund budget, right? Those are the budgets. And then we say, oh, well, that went up or down. Okay, great. And then we move on to the articles. Well, the articles, we don't ever see how those articles impact the final dollar amount, which is what your taxes are. When we look at the combination of the articles and what the two budgets are, the highway budget and the general fund budget, you actually come up with some magic number that is around $900,000 or less. This year is a little different because we're taking that surplus and we're investing some of it. However, if you look at the articles in this report, there are two articles that are different this year, the reserve and the investment fund. If you remove those, you would have effectively what we've been doing for the last number of years. And you can, if you look at the history of where we've been spending our money, you could actually probably argue that we're being a little bit conservative this year if you take those two articles out. That being said, 3 years ago, in 2023, I should say, we, including the articles and the funds combined, we raised in our taxes $992,000 in change. The tax rate was 57 cents. This year, including the two articles, we have a tax rate of 51.5% roughly. It's actually slightly less. And we're actually asking the taxpayers to come up with 911,000. Actually, it would be 912 and change or something by the time we get done, probably. But so we're actually asking far less than we have historically, and we are saving greater amounts. If you take that same $272,000 and you apply it to pick one to reduce the taxes, you'll find that it's going to impact your tax rate a very, very small amount, and you won't get the bang for the buck. Whereas if we sit on the money and we offset, let's say, a new culvert in the future or whatever happens, a new building or whatever shows up, when we tax somebody at that point, we won't have gained the interest, and we're going to have to come up with the money for a bond or loan or something like that. So it's actually in our interest to pay less now, save more, and in the future, we'll be sitting much better. At some point, that $272,000 is going to get spent. It probably won't sit in an investment account, but we'll have saved it and gained 4% or 5% over however many years it takes to get there. So we'll be sitting a lot better in the end.
Pete?
Okay, that all sounds good. I'll go back to my personal finances for a second and just say that if I have an extra $100,000 sitting in my account, I might decide to buy a new couch and a new car and a new this and a new that. And so I just hope that going forward, we can be frugal with this money and not say, well, let's build a bathhouse or let's build a pool where the school is. And, I mean, sure, there might be lots of good reasons to spend money, but let's treat it like it's valuable, like it is. And so let's not spend it carelessly. Thanks.
Okay, any other discussion on Article 22? Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll move Article 22 to a vote. Article 22, should the town create an investment fund into which the town may place monies not required for immediate expenditure to authorize the Select Board to manage, invest, and reinvest the assets of said fund in accordance with state law and an investment policy adopted by the Select Board, and to authorize the Select Board to take all actions necessary to implement and administer said fund. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 22 passes as written. Article 23. Shall the voters appropriate $275,000 for the investment fund, of which $275,000 shall be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? Looking for a motion from the floor. Carolyn. And seconded by Kathy Scott. Any discussion on Article 23? This is our last article, guys. So if you want to discuss, this is the time. Okay. Seeing no discussion, we'll bring Article 23 to a vote. Article 23, shall the voters appropriate $275,000 for the investment fund, of which $275,000 should be applied from fiscal year 2025 budget surplus? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 23 passes as written. We've already voted on Article 24. However, I know that I think Becky and Pat had a couple of announcements. So if there's no objection, I'll yield the floor to Becky first and then Pat second.
As a result of the What's Possible Windham group that we did last year, I'm part of the community events planning team, and one of the things that we would like to launch is a skill sharing program where people in the community could come share their skills, whether it's knitting or bread making or whatever. So we put together a survey. I'm going to leave some at the town office, and there's some back there too. If you just want to take a look at it, if you have any skills that you want to share, just reach out to me. You can respond by email. You don't have to respond on the form. You can just respond by email to either me or Dane. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Well, I just wanted to, on behalf of Neighborhood Connections, which I'm a board member, and so is Pat Cherry, thank Windham for its generous support of Neighborhood Connections programs. Neighborhood Connections has served a number of individuals and families in Windham through their social work assistance program, community meals program, which Becky cooks, if you be great, and Bill, we have a whole group from Windham that helps with the community meals. Meals on Wheels, rides to medical appointment, and delivery of prescription medication, which is a problem for some people since the pharmacy in Londonderry closed. In addition, Neighborhood Connections has provided shuttle service for us for the What's Possible Windham program, as well as today. And so I think that's very helpful for us since we have such limited parking here at the Meeting House. So many residents volunteer their time, particularly with Becky, in the meals program, and there are many new classes and programs coming on board. And we hope that the residents of Windham will take advantage of some of the things that are being offered. For instance, last month they started a snowshoeing program. So a lot of things that might be of interest. But thank Windham, thank you very much on behalf of Neighborhood Connections.
Okay. Cord, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, but in particular, I'd like to thank my select board teammates here and all the other town officials. I see our new, relatively new town clerk is here, and our new assistant town clerk, and our new treasurer, and our auditors, and we've got all kinds. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I just want you to know how valuable and how competent all these people are, and I hope you appreciate it. I certainly do, because you can tell I didn't have anything to say during the meeting hardly, because they were all doing my job. So thanks so much to everybody, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but they really are a competent crew, and I hope you appreciate it.
Okay, looking for a motion from the floor. Oh, all the hands go up now all of a sudden. You waited the whole meeting to speak, and now you want to talk. Kathy, I saw your hand first. What's your motion? Motion to adjourn, need a second. Seconded by Pat. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned to 2:19 p.m.